The two epistles proper, their theme and occasion. Expositors have tried to extract themes for each of these letters, but this is a difficult task because of the wide variety of contents. If a theme were mandatory, it would almost have to be Christian conduct as it relates to church doctrine and practices. A noteworthy possibility for consideration. These two epistles have posed problems for dedicated students of the Scripture, not concerning the validity of the contents, but of the arrangement of certain passages and chapters. Historical records of the canonization of the Bible clearly show that the collection of the contents of the books and letters, those contents were not always in order. Much credit is due to those who have so carefully and prayerfully labored to give the contents of each book their proper arrangement. The average reader may not know or consider, even if he does know, that the original manuscripts were not divided into chapters and verses. It appears that the chapters were divided on the 13th century AD, around the 1200s, and the verses were not until the 16th century. This was difficult work for those who did it. And though the scriptures themselves are unquestionably inspired of God, the work of organizing the contents was not necessarily so. However, we need not doubt that it was done with much fear and trembling. In the meticulous task of arranging, other considerations sometimes arose. The 2 Corinthian letters are examples of some possible uncertainties. Again, it is not in the contents, but in the arrangement of some portions. On the deduction of unclear statements within the letters themselves, there appears to have been 4 letters written by Paul to the local church. In 1 Corinthians 5 and 9, he says, I wrote unto you in this epistle not to keep company with fornicators. Scholars have called that epistle the previous letter. We do not have that letter, but it has been strongly suggested in 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 7 and 1 may be a misplaced fragment of it, since it is difficult to understand that passage in the context of chapter 6. Then 2 Corinthians chapter 10 through 13 appears to revive a serious problem which seems to have been fully resolved after much heartache, according to the chapters 1 through 9. This has been explained as follows. Number 1, the previous letter brought Paul a reply from Corinth, along with numerous other questions. Our 1 Corinthians is actually the second epistle answering those inquiries, but as we shall see, it was necessarily full of reproof. Upon the Corinthian receipt of the letter of reproof, the situation grew worse. So it seems that Paul paid them a personal visit, a second visit. This reasoning rises from his mention of his proposed third visit in 2 Corinthians 12 and 14. Since there was to be a third visit, there had to have been a second, which is not mentioned in the extant scriptures or those scriptures that exist today. 3. Apparently, if there was a second visit, it only aggravated matters, and Paul wrote a third epistle, which scholars believe to have been 2 Corinthians. Chapters 10 through 13, which have been called a severe letter, and 4, the fourth epistle would, in event, be our 2 Corinthians chapters 1 through 9. Again, through the above reasoning, has much to give it credence, it still does no violence to the inspiration and meaning of what is written. It does, however, make some otherwise puzzling questions more answerable in the light of their content. We will call attention to this reasoning again in future discussions. The first epistle. Paul's first letter to the church at Corinth, as given in the Bible, was written in around AD 57 to 59. Chronologies vary. Paul was at Ephesus, where he had gone after leaving Corinth some 3 years earlier.